Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud and pleased to be able to announce our next speaker, who's Dave de Bronkart. We're especially happy to have Dave here because Dave is our friend. Yes, he is. And, well, Dave, it says here, why some patients want all their data now, and isn't that what FHIR is? And I think, Dave, that you are the representation of what FHIR is in the flesh.
I'm one. I'm certainly not the whole thing.
Yeah, well, Dave, I think we first met at HIMSS, well, you call yourself e-patient Dave, but I think you have more energy than any healthy person. You're very famous in the United States, and you will be here in Europe. I saw your name on an event in Groningen as well.
Yes.
So I thought we had the exclusive, but we don't, anyway. And we're very happy, and I think that you will understand why he is the one that should be here at FHIR DevDays after his talk. Dave.
I just want to make clear, I am available on an exclusive for a sufficient salary.
Just go to Groningen.
Brothers and sisters, keepers of the bites, hallelujah, our day has come. I am sick and tired of spending my whole life with people making fun of people like me. Well, I mean, I just love doing horrible things with Excel. You know, and the last code I ever did was with Quick Basic back in the 1980s. But I understand what can happen when the right people with the right application and the right data apply something. I also understand what can happen if people have a false belief about what is and isn't possible. All of you who are trying hard to see over other people, feel free to push your way forward. Everybody should be able to see. Anyway, the E in e-patient stands for empowered, engaged, equipped, enabled. It's the opposite of a patient who sits back and says, boy, there's nothing I can do. See, that statement, there's nothing I can do, that is the voicing of powerlessness. Somebody saying, I have no power. And indeed, in healthcare, some people feel I have no power, but some of us are saying, I've had enough of that, let me help. Okay, in my TED Talk in Maastricht in 2011, the chant at the end was, let patients help. Fundamental principle here, and a large part of the content of this talk is designed to address rational concerns that people have expressed when I've spoken before. And the reason I'm here, normally I'm a paid professional keynote speaker. I bought my own plane ticket here and paying my own hotel expenses and so on, because our time has come. It's happening now, things that we've been looking for years. And so one of the key objections is people talk about patients like it's those people out there riding their bicycles on the street. Okay? And I'm here to tell you, as a cancer survivor, your time will come when it's you or a member of your family who is in trouble. And then everything looks different. And you are far more concerned about what's possible than what you've been told. Yesterday, I'm very grateful to Janet after her moving talk yesterday, Janet Campbell of Epic, for sharing these photos. She told the story about George, who had a stroke, and Christy, the young woman who discovered she had multiple sclerosis. For both of them and their families, their view of the world changed. Here's a very short version of my story. My website is epatientdave.com. You can look up all of this. In 2007, January 2007, I had a shoulder x-ray because I just had a stiff shoulder. My doctor called and said, Dave, your shoulder's going to be fine, but there's something in your lung. Totally by coincidence. And as it happens, that was one of 5 metastases in both lungs. I had another one in the leg, which eventually broke, one in the head, additional ones everywhere, including, you look at the head there, I had a tumor growing out of my tongue. Kidney cancer is what it turned out to be. I had a kidney cancer tumor growing in my mouth, and my median survival was 24 weeks. The best available data said that people in my condition, on average, lasted 5.5 months before they died. This will focus your attention, whether it's you yourself, your mother, your child, And you get into a mood where you want to say, what can I do? Importantly, there's a whole world of other information in this. But my primary physician referred me to an online patient group. And in that patient group, this is exactly like any other kind of user group as it happens, but they had additional information that's not in the medical literature that my oncologist says helped save my life, because obviously I didn't die in 24 weeks. There's one of my tumors 50 weeks later. I was diagnosed in January and my treatment ended in July. I've had nothing since then. Extraordinary. 2 years later, life had spun out of control. I spoke at TEDx Maastricht, and as I said, I ended with a chant, "Let patients help. Let patients help." Now, this is important because some people think that patient empowerment means overthrowing physicians. Nothing could be further from the truth. I didn't even know I was sick when I went to the doctor. I certainly couldn't have diagnosed myself. I couldn't have taken out my kidney and all of that stuff. This is purely let patients help. I assert to you, I do not work as a scientist, but I'm scientifically trained. I'm an MIT graduate. I assert that our paradigm of patient is broken. It is as mistaken as the pre-Copernican view of the universe. I published this article last year in the Patient Experience Journal. And when the paradigm is broken, it holds back progress. You will encounter this if you start talking to people about patient-oriented apps. They will say, what could patients do with it? So here's the thing. All right, this stuff is hard. It's hard to be a doctor, right? What could people contribute if they don't have that training? The belief there is without that training, you can't do anything. I will give you some examples. I say, try us. You know, our ability to create solutions is primarily limited by lack of data. This is where you come in. Open a hose, okay? Here is an early example of this. This is a woman who is a graphic illustrator who with 2 chronic conditions, who back in 2012 created this graphic just to show new doctors what her history has been. All right, now, and you look at it more closely, there's not necessarily any therapeutic value to this, but look, a commenter on this blog post on my blog said, self-monitoring, it's just another manifestation of our self-absorption, you know? This will just generate revenue and speaking opportunities for it. So, now, people say, well, okay, Dave, so maybe your story is true, but the patients I know aren't asking for this. And I love this because I lived through the women's movement in the 60s and 70s in Boston. This has strong parallels about what men used to think about women. Here, from 1912, in 1912 in the United States, the question, should women be allowed to vote, was on the ballot. And here is a brochure from the National Association opposed to women's suffrage. And look at the thinking. 90% of women don't want it or don't care. The women I know aren't asking for the vote. Why should we bother doing that? It's exactly the same kind of thinking. Clearly a mental error. Here's another great example from Boston. This is 1967, the Boston Marathon. 20-year-old woman named Catherine Switzer had registered for the marathon, not realizing that women were not allowed to register for the Boston Marathon. She signed in as K. Switzer. And so this guy's famous photo of the race manager says, get the hell out of my race. Well, so here's it. In fact, the reasoning was girls obviously are not athletic. Now, if you have no girls' sports in the schools, your experience will be that girls don't do athletic things. Stop thinking that way, right? So the thing is, if you remove constraints, what's possible changes. In 1972, a federal law was passed saying that half of government money for school sports had to go to girls. And this changed what's possible. One generation later, 27 years later, the U.S. women's team won the World Cup. All right, you remove constraints and what's possible changes. And the delightful punchline to this story is that last year, 50 years after this photo, was this photo, the same woman, Catherine Switzer, at age 70, ran the Boston Marathon. And if this guy thought it was crazy for a 20-year-old to, seriously, mental errors, paradigm errors block advancement. So don't make that mistake. Here is Kate Sheridan. As a kid in school, very active athlete and student, she got a case of Lyme disease, 30 doctors, 15 diagnoses, and ended up basically disabled on the couch in the living room, unable to even read. The doctors couldn't figure it out. Her mother is a PhD researcher, not a medical person, but she, at some point, she told this story at HIMSS last March. It's an hour-long talk, both of them speaking, extraordinary story. She said, I took this 1.5-foot pile of printouts, typed it into Excel. That's a lot of typing stuff into Excel, right? But you know, there's a great book, The Other Side of Impossible, about 7 women, it happened to all be women, who, when all the other answers were gone and the doctors had no answers, they just said, look, my daughter is not better yet. My wife is not better yet. And they took action, all right? The other thing they realized is that she had 26 different symptoms that came and went, and nobody was keeping track of that. So this is why it's important in FHIR, the capability for extensions, you need to support patient-defined data types, whatever it might be, right, so that you can integrate those. Started tracking their severity, so it wasn't just a combination of what was in the hospital systems, but her patient data also, and they kept track of how she responded to each trial. Here is a close-up of the spreadsheet they created from 2009. This is the total symptom burden. I don't know what happened here, but in 2012, they figured something out, and she got better. And here is Kate. This year, she is now a grad student at Oxford. She's completely cured through this effort of her mother. And she said, at HIMSS, I can't tell you how powerful it is to be able to hold this in my hands, right? There are many patients who are far crazier stories, but they don't have the tools. I'm asking you to help us change that. I'm asking you to help us change that. Release all the data, do everything you can to configure the whole application space in a way that will enable people to invent new workflows. Many of you may have heard of Michael Morris, so consider that what Kate's mother did with that pile of Excel stuff, she wouldn't have had to do if all that data had been available through FireStreams. Michael Morris spoke at the Application Roundtable in Washington, D.C. last month. He is a programmer who has stage 4 colorectal cancer, metastasized, and these are a few screen captures from his talk. He says the data is siloed, reactive, call me if you get sick, rather than monitoring what's going on. He's using FHIR now to build his own dashboard, which he has turned into a company called CureSoft. Here is a low-resolution screen capture. He gets treated at 4 different hospitals, and none of his doctors have this view. So their visits start with him presenting his dashboard. All right? This is great. Enable this. And just like when I do some data crunching in Excel, I'll say I need a different kind of chart. He'll create it. And I want to see that in commercially available products. All right? So what I want you to do is enable a patient-side app ecosystem to develop. I know in the hospital world, they have things they need to do. Just let us get the data out also so that we can do supplemental things that can blossom in directions of its own. I chose Let Patients Help because it echoed what Tim Berners-Lee had said in his TED Talk. I got them chanting, Let Patients Help. He got them chanting, raw data now. And what he said at the end of that talk was when you connect data together, you get power. That's what I'm asking for. Enable a patient-side app ecosystem that can blossom in directions of its own. Thank you so much for your attention.